Welcome to Fork Around and Find Out, the podcast about building, running, and maintaining software and systems. Hello and welcome to Fork Around and Find Out. I am your host, Justin Garrison, and with me as always is Autumn Nash. How's it going, Autumn?
This is delightful. That's how it's going.
We've been in this room for 10 minutes now, and the guest on the show is David Crawshaw. Thank you so much, David, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. So far this has been amazing. All of us have had
audio
audio trouble.
hurting, and so I had to hit record just to make sure that we don't miss out on anything else because this is too good.
Like my eyeliner's smearing. Like.
Yeah, go subscribe on YouTube, or we actually have an Instagram and we put the clips on. There is a dedicated Fork Around and Find Outs on LinkedIn, which I just love that, like, it's like a business LinkedIn account, which we post clips on there. So if you're not subscribed to like the social channels, we post clips of all these shows and they're super fun because it's all the little fun things about, seeing Autumn's mascara smearing or something like that. So.
Or the faces Justin makes. Right before he says something really shady and then he like smiles really big and it's great. I'm glad that the world can see it now.
When I actually get a light bulb, it's like it actually shows up on my
I can see it. It's great.
So, but
I met a grown adult the other day who was like half my age and said like, "Oh, I watched a podcast the other day," and I was like, "No, that's what's happening." Yeah. So,
like, do you know the etymology of the word podcast? I just want to tell you.
I am of an age that I do, yeah. And so
How
they
old are
did
you?
not. I'm not that old. And so
That's what I'm
it's a
saying.
little
I'm
bit
like,
of gray. Yeah.
But if you remember when the video iPod came out, then you're old enough to know that the podcast
You know what's
should not
funny
be video
though?
form.
Like
This grown adult I was talking to was born in 2006.
Oh.
And like,
dude.
see the problem?
Every time my little brother reminds me how when he was born, like I was graduating high school in 2006. I'm like, why? Like, you didn't have to do me like that. Like I feel.
I know it hurts.
Yeah. So, on the topic of being old, David, we wanted to talk about
Wow.
clouds being old. Not you, but the industry and technology just being too old and needing a revamp on how things work. And so you are one of the co-founders of Tailscale, which in my opinion is like rebuilding the network for the internet, or what networks should be on a giant amorphous thing that we call the internet.
That's how I feel about it. Network should be better.
Yeah.
Tailscale improves the situation. Yeah, I'm a
Can you
huge
tell
fan
us
of Tailscale.
what Tailscale is from your point of view? Because I think sometimes our listeners don't always know all the things Justin does. So that way.
I spent 6 years trying to come up with an elevator pitch for Tailscale. I still don't really have it right. So it's can I do it well? No, but I could try. Like Tailscale's a network for my computers. Like they're connected when I install Tailscale on them. Like they can ping each other, and without Tailscale on them, they mostly can't ping each other. Like my phone is like on some Verizon thing. I can't ping that without Tailscale. But once I can, then I can open up port 8080 on my Mac or whatever. I can just look at stuff. And like when I started using computers, that's how they worked because we had a bunch of PCs. We didn't have the internet yet, but we set up a LAN between them. This is my father's medical practice back in the 90s. And, it was IPX originally, but eventually we switched to TCP/IP. And they all had IP addresses and all the machines could talk to each other. And that to me is what networking is. And now we live in 2026 and everything's on the internet, but nothing can talk to each other. And that's kind of weird. And so Tailscale is like, what if everyone could talk to each other?
Oh, that was such a good. Your elevator pitch is better than you think it is because I feel like a lot of times people can't explain what problem they're solving,
I really appreciate that. Also, I just totally winged that, and I've never said that before. So
Well, there you go. You should have winged it the whole time.
Yeah.
You know what? Save this podcast for later so you can then use it again because it was good.
I'll enjoy watching this on TikTok.
Perfect. Actually, we did close our TikTok. Did we close the TikTok account? I think I did.
Yeah, the fact that
that's right.
I tried to re-download it again the other day and I went to go turn off the location services after it asked me a bunch of very scary questions about we get your data, but not passively, actively, every 5 minutes.
I know what room of your house you're in.
It's not by neighborhood, but I know exactly where you are. And then I went in the settings and there's no turn off location services settings. It does not exist.
Yeah. Well,
And I was like,
once
no,
Oracle
not
bought
today,
it, I shut it
Satan.
down. I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
Never mind.
I did too, but I was like, well, everybody's still on it. Maybe I should go like look. And I was like, I feel like I'm missing so much news. And I like looked at this like the agreement, and I was like, not today, Satan.
Never mind. Which also, by like a complete aside on the Tailscale stuff, and we're gonna move into the next thing. Tailscale Up, I think, is in August.
Yeah.
This podcast is coming out in June. I will be speaking at Tailscale Up. So if anyone's going, it's in San Francisco. I think the tickets are open now. You can sign up, or at least when this podcast is out, for sure. Tickets are out and available. Maybe it's sold out. I have no idea. But if you're in the area, come stop by because I will be there. So yeah, that's fun times.
We know it'll be fun because you'll be there.
Yeah,
So,
it's fun.
Yeah.
I will build something ridiculous, absolutely, on top of it.
Nice.
I think last year I spoke at Tailscale Up, and I built my own game streaming service using Moonlights from an AWS instance on top of
I'm always like,
Kubernetes.
what is he gonna put in the like kitty backpack today?
I actually
Like-
did the entire presentation from a Steam Deck, which was also fun, just because it was a new toy and it was fun to do. But let's talk about the next thing you've been working on, because you're building a brand new cloud, and that's the thing that is too old now. Right? Existing
Yeah.
clouds suck. And I am a huge fan for anyone that builds a service that has no app or unique interface. And it's just like, when I saw SSH into exe.dev, I was like, I'm in. I want to
Nice.
see how this works. So
Awesome.
can you explain XEDev to us?
Yeah, XEDev's a cloud. Yeah, it's computers.
Better elevator pitch right there.
Yeah, it's I know it took us a while, but we finally got around to like it's very tempting to try and not say you're building a cloud, because like that's too big. You can't possibly do that, right? I'm doing some smaller thing. But like let's just go right at it and say what we're doing. So yeah, we put computers in data centers, and then we let you use those computers for money. And that's the service. And I think that's what a cloud is. And yeah, clouds are not in great shape right now, and that's why we're building one. Like every time I try to use one, I don't enjoy the process. I gave them all a try before building this one and said, yeah, I don't want any of these. I've always thought that, actually. I've thought that for at least 10 years now. It's gotten slightly worse over that time as clouds continue to change exactly who they're for. I would claim clouds have never really been designed for developers, because fundamentally the people buying resources in clouds are not developers. They're companies that are looking for compute, and if they can save a certain amount of money on a cloud product by making developers do a bit more work to use an even worse API, they will, if like the dollars add up. And so the purchaser is not the developer, and like it really shows with clouds. I have a command to like ls my AWS VMs so I can see them in EC2. It's like 4 lines long. It involves like parsing JSON several times. I'm like, why? Like, I just want a list. Could I have a list, please? I don't understand why this stuff is hard. And I kind of do. There's a lot of path dependence. This stuff is old. And so I've wanted to build a cloud for a long time, and it's never made any sense, because for exactly the reason I said, the developers don't buy clouds. They're not the big spenders. And so why would you build one? And the answer is things are changing, and they're changing because of agents. We're going to write a lot more software. It's going to be agent-driven and agent-written and agent-deployed. And what is best for agents is not the clouds that we have right now. What is best for agents is the big question. And my co-founder Josh and I spent a while working on this problem, and we finally figured it out. What's best for agents is actually just what's best for developers. And there's a really simple reason for that, which is models that agents are powered by are trained on transcripts of developers working. That's that reinforcement learning cycle. That's where it comes from. And so, it's whatever is best for a developer is best for an agent. And so none of the clouds are best for agents because they're not made for developers. And so the idea is if we build something we actually want, we're also building something that agents actually want. And so we have this, great reason to go and build all this infrastructure. And so the real focus initially is developer environments. The idea is use exe.dev for writing software. So that's what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Now, I feel like there's a shift in what people were thinking maybe last year or the year before, what agents wanted, right? Like agents wanted APIs. And clouds made sense there because you get APIs, and like MCP is basically like, what if my shell commands were an API, right? Like that's basically what MCP kind of is doing for a lot of folks. They're just like, let me just shell it. And like agents talking to MCP servers was all about, how do I get this agent to talk to an API that is better than the output of ffmpeg/help, right? Which is sometimes hard to parse. But agents are generally, or at least LLMs in general, kind of figure it out. But in a lot of cases, like there's an FFmpeg MCP server that gives you more verbose information around that. Why isn't that the right solution of exposing LLMs or agents to APIs?
Because it's not what developers are trained on. Yeah, it just comes back to those reinforcement learning loops. Developers type stuff into the command line, and the command line's a great API. And you can see this with agents today, right? Like if you take the Playwright MCP and plug it into your agent so that it can, for Claude Code or something, so that it can use Chrome while you're doing some web work, which is really good, by the way. Like if you're ever trying to like get Claude Code to create some CSS for you, it's just like a person. It'll like make some CSS and then you try looking at it and it doesn't work because, the alignment's wrong. And with a Playwright plugged into it, with Chromium plugged into it, Claude Code can open it in Chrome, take a screenshot, look at the screenshot and say, oh yeah, nothing's aligned correctly, and then go and fix it. And so you get this wonderful feedback loop from plugging Playwright into Claude Code or, some other equivalent Chromium system. And yeah, you can plug the Playwright MCP in, but you can also plug the Playwright CLI in, and it works just as well. And there's if you try measuring like how many tokens does it take to solve a problem, either way, it's about the same once you both get them working. Only I can get the Playwright CLI working faster, and so I don't see the fundamental advantage for agents in MCP from a ease of use. The advantages of MCP is that for us, not for agents, it can be easy to put auth on that stuff. And so it can be easy to expose services that are otherwise just really difficult to expose. And so, MCP potentially has a lot of value. I'm not saying don't use it. But it's not fundamentally better than a command line interface.
I actually think that using AI on command line interface is easier for me just in general.
Me too. It's easier for me to know what's going on, right?
Exactly.
Well, and none of those command line interfaces were ever designed for something like an agent, or like there's no auth built into pretty much any Linux CLI tool, or at least standard CLI tools. So the way you're getting around that is basically more sandboxes, right? You just say, actually, I'm going to give you full access in a VM and go have fun because there's no files there for you to destroy.
Which is like really hard too when you're trying to interact with multiple things. Like when I feel like that's like one of the biggest barriers to using agents, because I'll be committing to open source, but then wanting to commit to like a proprietary repo or like my own personal repo. And then the auth between all those three of those things is so difficult. And then you're trying to like be secure and not just give it access to everything. And then sometimes you can't give it access to the one thing you want to give it to. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Like that's actually the hardest problem with agents, is setting them up so they can work.
Yes.
And it's hard because agents have to be able to do it themselves. They have to have their own feedback loop without you in the middle saying, I ran the tests and here's the error. Because otherwise you just sit there doing that 30 times a day, but on 4-minute intervals, which is just the worst. It's and yeah, so you got to figure out how to set that up. And right now it's a ton of work to do all that stuff. And it's we've spent 18 months thinking about this problem and trying various things. And I don't think there's any easy solution here. I think we have to rebuild a bunch of stuff, and it's going to be pretty painful. That's
Where do you see people using agents? You know what I mean? Like, where do you see? Because everybody wants to be like, AI is going to replace people, and then people are like, we hate AI, and then they're like, we love AI, and like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think like you have a more measured approach from what I've seen on your blogs. Because I think my opinion of AI even has changed over the last years. Where with like currently, like where do you see people like using this technology that you're building the cloud for?
I mean, it's good your opinion's changed over the last year, because AI has changed a lot over the last year.
I feel like it's changed a lot in the last couple of months.
Yeah, it was somewhere near the end of last year, sort of like October, November, depending who you ask, where models got really, really good at the tool calling loops for agents, where agents went from like writing 20% of my code to almost all of my code. It was a really huge shift, and it changed the way I think about them.
Are you ever scared that you're gonna like lose your muscle to write code? Because like I think like not to plug the company I work for because it's not about that, but I've been using GitHub CLI more because of the CLI interface and being able to like see what it's actually doing because I feel like I learn the commands that I don't know, but also just kind of knowing and tracking where it is and what it's doing, and I feel like it's slightly less scary. Like, do you feel like do you ever worry about that, I guess?
I mean, I think it's a real risk. Like, I've been using agents to do all of my Git work for me because driving the Git API, Git CLI itself, has always been too hard for me. I've never been very good at it. Uh, and I'm never going to rebase again by hand, ever. And I've already forgotten half of how to do it. It's so much better at it than I am. Like, me resolving merge conflicts is just a disaster. Like, if you ever wanted to make like a ridiculous video for the internet of embarrassing programming, it would be me handling a merge conflict. Like, I get it wrong like 4 times. I'll lose some code.
But it's rad that
well.
you'll actually admit that because I love how people are like, you can't be a developer unless you know all the Git, but we're never going to teach Git in college or do it. You know what I mean? Like, and there's never any room for people to be like, I hate it and it was hard.
Yeah. I feel like if I became a Git expert and really knew how to use it, there'd be no space left in my head for programming. And so, like, I'd be really good at merge conflicts, but I wouldn't know how to write a computer program. So,
But
like,
don't you think that's something that's like not talked about a lot? Like it's like I think sometimes we want to like posture to be like I know everything and it is impossible to know everything. Like you're just not going to be very good at something if you can't like if there's no room to grow. But then I also kind of wonder, do you think that like we'll get to the point where all the knowledge will be like behind a paywall because we're going to have to use AI? Like, you know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, I
Because
don't.
that was the cool thing about development. You had all these
Yeah,
websites, right, that you could go to and you could learn code for free. Like,
yeah.
is this now?
I've never thought about that. I haven't played through the idea of like knowledge being locked behind one of the models, because right now the models are desperate for any knowledge they can find, right? So they're only good at things that are very public and very on the internet. But you're right. I think there is a long-term risk there of some sort, but it's years out, I would say.
Well, and one of the things that you mentioned that like end of 2025, agents got better at writing code, and I feel like in May when we're recording this of 2026, the open source models are getting better at like they're catching up, and so all the price hikes and changes in every AI company, and people are just like, oh, you know, like we can't go back to the old way. But I need to be able to have some control over this, or at least be able to just like buy a model, like buy box software that's like an LLM,
Yes,
right? Like
because
like
you know, like just being like somebody who came from the graphic design world, like you used to be able to buy Adobe like suite and you pay for it once and you use it for years, and then it got to the point where it's like having to pay for it every month. Like some artists don't make the same amount of money every month, you know? So it's like, and I wonder, like, a lot of what we're training on and what, you know, developers used was Stack Overflow in these forums that were public and that everybody talked about the problems they were having. And it gets to a point, like, if those forums disappear, like, what are we even going to train models and developers on, you know?
Well, there's lots to train models on. That's what the subscriptions are. Like when you buy a subscription to one of the major platforms, you're agreeing in the terms of service that you can be trained on. And
That's
that's
true.
what, yeah. And so there's a lot of training data out there. It's harder to come by. It's not all nice and open like Stack Overflow anymore. Fortunately, the open models seem to be able to train on the closed models. And, you know, I'm no
as much
expert
as they
at
don't
this,
want
but
it,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's right. This whole distillation process, it seems quite easy, and you know, they're very upset about this. But also,
but they also stole the world, so screw you. It's like,
You know what I mean? Like, it's so funny. It's like, they're just like, and this is like egregious. And you're like,
Yeah.
but you like did it to
yeah,
like
I mean,
artists
yeah.
and writers, you know what I
yeah.
mean?
How many lawsuits are you like you just rolling through
All
every
of
YouTube video
Not
and
just that,
stealing
but our
every
answers on
podcast?
Stack Overflow
Yeah.
and questions, you know what I mean? Like, I spent like a lot of my early career at AWS answering people's Stack Overflow for the service I worked for, you know? Nobody's paying me for all of that work. Like,
Yeah, I don't know what the correct moral and legal outcome of all of this is, but my violin is very small. So that's
David, you're really good at software, but you're really funny. Like, You've had me like laughing the entire time.
I want to take one.
I wish my kids agreed with you.
No,
think
my
jokes
kids
are
think
terrible.
I'm so not cool.
Kids never. No, like our kids have to talk to each other, and then they'll think
Yeah.
each other's funny. Because Autumn's kids thinks I'm hilarious, but my kids are
It's
deadpan.
so annoying. They don't think I'm funny or cool at all. They get on they get on FaceTime with each other, and Justin will be in the background, and they think he's the coolest thing since sliced bread, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you think you know him? Me?
My kid's looking at me like, "What do you mean him? No, this is my dad." Or, yeah. So anyway.
Don't think my kids even know what I do. That's fine. so
I want to take a step back here on building a cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has known for a long time the wrong way about building anything is going and buying and racking and stacking a bunch of servers, right? The amount of capital and time and stuff you have to do there is just you're gonna die and someone's gonna surpass you. Why did you go that route? How did you go that route? And what does that look like today?
Yeah, it's I mean, you're right. Like, you can't compete with a hyperscaler on racking and stacking computers. Like, that's actually true. You get economy of scale by buying billions at a time. And so the machines are necessarily more expensive than they'll sell. And that is at a certain deal size, that's the killer. That's what makes it all not work. But the deal size is very large is the key thing, right? Like, we actually started XeDev on AWS. And that's when we launched in late December. We silently launched around Christmas, and then quickly got overwhelmed. And we were mostly off AWS by the end of January. But our AWS bill got to $100,000 a month before that. That is not enough for an AWS sales rep to call you. They don't care. $100,000 a month, that's nothing to them. There's no discounts at that price.
Which is wild because I think that the bar is going to... I remember when we used to give out discounts at a certain scale. And if you think about the workloads with AI, that scale has got to get bigger and bigger because people are consuming more compute power and their bills are bigger.
And the gap between the top end and the bottom end is wide.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
It is just getting
ginormous. They don't care about anyone in the
ginormous.
middle there. Yeah.
Yeah, and not caring about anyone in the middle is why there's a chance to try and build something, and why the economics of this can work out in the middle size. Because right now, if I try to run on AWS, I pay their vast margins on top of their machines, and then how can I charge users on top of that? I can't pay for everything. But if you rack your own machines, they're dramatically cheaper than AWS's list prices. And so that's at a medium-sized scale. To build one of these things, you have to rack your own machines because they're not going to give you the discounts you need. It's either that or go and raise all the money in the world and then give it all to AWS.
Which is, if you're not wrong, look at what people are doing. People are either doing colos because that's the only way that can control their bills. Because, if AWS decides to charge a certain amount for data coming in and out and they change something, you're now stuck because that's what you built it on, So it's
or once you go off of AWS, and you're oh, guess what? I get free bandwidth. What the hell?
And that's something that and think about the fact that for a long time that was a secret, right? People did not know and they didn't take that into consideration when doing these budgets, right? So, but you're not wrong. How many times have we heard from Blue Sky and all these new places, these new companies that are scaling at this extent, and they're we are running in colos because that's their options.
Yeah, Blue Sky is too small for AWS to care to give them proper discounts, which is
Which
sort
is
of
wild.
astonishing, right?
They only have they have 10 machines and 3 of those are Raspberry Pis, right?
Even if they had 100, they'd be too small.
Yeah,
it's
but that's what I'm saying. That is the threshold. Think about how much Blue Sky has scaled over the last few years, and they're still too small for that discount.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying is you can do a lot with one computer, which is very true.
But isn't it cool? If you mention the two things that you've built, right? You're talking about Tailscale and XeDev. Those are. It's almost solving problems more in a way that we used to solve them a while ago, actually having, and not just that, but it's kind of more control over your network, more control over your data and your cloud. That's all things that we kind of gave up some control of things for ease. And now it's not easier or cheaper. And it just seems a lot of this is going back to almost the basics.
Yes, that's 100% my whole philosophy with building
So you're
everything.
saying your third startup's going to be a storage provider. So
Blob storage.
I mean, that's not a terrible idea. It's I mean, I would say one other thing, which is one of the reasons why I was willing to jump so quickly into Colo is building on top of another cloud means inherently accepting some of their design decisions. And
Identity.
Yeah,
Network. Yeah.
Well, and it's
network is the big one.
and it would be different if you knew exactly what you were signing up for when you were accepting those design like decisions. But a lot like just different regions and different clouds and just different ways that those services were built. Like sometimes you have no idea what you're truly building on top of.
Absolutely. That's it's always, and that's particularly true at the PaaS level when like you're using those services. You read the docs, you say I can build my software. Like 4 weeks in, you discover some new constraint of the PaaS that ruins everything, and your design is invalid. Oh, that's happened to me several times in my career, which is why I won't touch PaaSes anymore.
I don't think people like realize like what you're being sold. Like this is somebody else building a technology on top of other constraints that you are now bound to that you don't even know exist.
That's right. I mean, an AWS Lambda, one of those PaaSes, it's built on EC2. Yeah, it's all VMs under the hood, right? It's computers at the end of the day.
All of it is a Linux server in the cloud somewhere.
Exactly. There's one physical constraint of AWS machines and GCP and all the rest. They're all very similar. That really interests me about doing our own machines. That I'm very interested in trying to do something new in, which is they're all very big into remote block storage, and this made a lot of sense when they built it 15, 20 years ago. And in fact, I was working on big storage systems at Google or adjacent to the storage team because we had a lot of storage. Back in 2010. Like remote storage was exactly the correct solution for everything back then. And it was because we were using hard drives. And with hard drives, a seek to random read or random write takes 10 milliseconds to move the head in the hard drive physically. And then you add a millisecond of Ethernet round trip time. It's not that big a deal. And so we built all these remote systems. And then at some point we swapped everything out for SSDs. And SSDs have 10 microsecond seek times. And then 1 millisecond of Ethernet round trip time on top of it. And so now we've taken these really fast SSDs and put them behind very slow network, and taken away a lot of the advantage of NVMe. And I think that there's an opportunity to try and revisit that. And like clouds don't want to revisit that. Like you can get machines with NVMe in them on AWS, but they're odd. They're odd in the sense of the NVMe is relatively small compared to the capabilities of the machine, or you've gone to one of their more exotic instances that are clearly designed for running really big database servers. They're very large.
You're probably much more expensive also.
You're looking...
And they're not cheap. They're not cheap.
You're looking 5 to 6 figures per month to rent something.
That's right. They're very expensive machines. And on top of that, they're unusual in really interesting ways, right? Like if you rack a traditional machine with a bunch of NVMe in it, like maybe a drive will fail, and you've set up some sort of RAID 5 like thing, and the drive fails, you have an ops person you're paying, they go in, they swap the drive, the machine's running in degraded mode the rest of the time, swap is good. In the cloud provider, when one of those drives fails, they have you reset the machine, and you immediately come up on a new machine with all the drives there, but you lost all the data. Your drives get wiped between those events, and then you have to restore from your remote block storage, which is a multi-hour procedure, which is totally fine if you're doing Postgres replicas, because your Postgres primary fails, you fail over to a replica, you bring up a new replica, you spend 8 hours filling 50 terabytes of data into the replica. No big deal. But it also means there's a whole stack of software you can't write that is easier and more reliable to build on physical machines than it is to buy it from a cloud provider, and that's very counterintuitive. I think of the cloud provider as the most reliable source out there, and they are, except in this one instance. And so I'm really interested in this problem because I have multiple times written a program on my laptop and then shipped it up to the cloud, and it's really slow. I'm like, why is it really slow? And it's like, oh, well, my server
using
in the
the
cloud,
disk.
Yeah, exactly. The server in the cloud's got 3,000 IOPS, and my local laptop's got 500,000 IOPS. I'm like, okay, yeah, there's the problem right there. So we're experimenting with that and seeing if we can do fun things with it.
It also depends on if you're on like something that's hosting multiple workloads or just your workload too.
I'm sure, like the noisy neighbor problem is always fun. Going back, so January, like we're out of the AWS. What did that practically look like? I want because like this audience is like really interested in the details. And at that point, you say, okay, you're like, you need 4 locations. You're like, let me find some colos. Let me just go like rent some servers from them. What does that actually look like? Of like core, like how do you calculate? We have $100,000 in AWS, and we're gonna move to that's whatever, maybe 100 machines, let's say, or whatever it was, and you're moving to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're gonna move to what, like 20 physical servers? Is that like what the calculation ended up being? Like, how did that look?
Yeah, we when you're doing startup things, you always think about growth, and so you immediately say to yourself, "Look, we're spending this on AWS for these users. We're growing at this rate. Let's build something that the users can grow into, and then we'll think about the previous users and moving them off." And that's very much the model. We still have a bit of an AWS bill from users we haven't finished moving off.
Sure.
That's because
you can move me if I'm there. I don't remember when I signed up, but
we really should move a lot of users because we have more regions now, so we can move the machines physically closer to you. You get a better experience. The machines are bigger. They've got less load on them. There's a lot of nice things about them. But we have a stack of users to move, and so it's we've got lists, and we're going to start sending people emails and like trying to semi-automate it because there's a few. But we're using it as an excuse to build good live migration machinery for moving VMs between regions without restarting them, which is going pretty well, but there's a long tail of things we run into, including just networks going bad in the middle, and like suddenly there's a lot of packet loss, and all of our live migrations go slow. It's astonishing. But yeah, we started by reaching out to providers who sell bare metal in data centers, but do quite a lot of management around it. So they pre-rack them, and you're purchasing machines that are already there.
Yeah,
and we could
service.
Yeah, and there's several of those, and that's you can do that very quickly. You can get machines up in days doing that, and so we did that. Those services are very busy right now because a lot of people interested in machines. Also, they're all going through price pain right now because computers have got a lot more expensive, and so they're all busy revamping all their prices, and so everything's very messy right now. But there's several very good services out there. And then the step after that is you start talking to a separate set of companies who basically run ops and data centers. And for this, you can actually go to some data centers do this directly. You can talk to someone like Equinix, and they have ops services they offer. But basically, you want to have some company on retainer who is employing someone who is there at 2 a.m. who can swap out the disk when it breaks. Because I'm not... if I have to fly to London to swap out a disk at 2 a.m., you have to wait for the plane to get there, and that's going to suck. Or now I'm going to be tired. And so it's very much, and it doesn't make sense for us to employ a full-time person in London to maintain just our machines because there's not very much maintenance on a small set of machines. And so this is a great thing to share between companies, and this is done at several levels, and there's a whole ecosystem of companies that offer these services in different forms. And so we just spoke to a whole set of them and picked one. And then we are racking machines with them, and then it's a matter of ordering machines from a machine provider, and you have to price them out with several people. And then there's a question of how much extra do you order and where do you store it. And again, a lot of these intermediate services will do the drop shipping of the machines for you too, and the racking, and like help manage all of this. And so we're in the middle of processes there right now, proving out machines.
What kind of scale were you at in January? I mean, if you just launched it, like soft launch in December, you're not doing hundreds of physical machines in all these locations.
No, we're doing dozens. This is more the number, and we're building out some extra capacity as part of it all. One of the interesting challenges with us is we're trying to, we're trying to make VMs easier to use, and the big thing for me is, and this is, if you want to get technical, I don't sell people VMs. I sell people a C group in which they can run VMs. And that's probably too technical, but the basic idea is
no, it's great for the audience. It's it's right here.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give you CPU and RAM and disk, and you run as many VMs in it as you like, because from my perspective, a VM is a Linux process, and if you want 2 of them, that's okay. You have 2 processes. They're in a C group. The resources are assigned to the C group. You want 100 of them, that's fine. You might run out of resources, then you need to buy more resources. That depends on your machines.
And that's the other thing I want to talk about was your pricing model is different, where it's not a EC2. I need 5 micros, and I get charged for each one. You're selling a pool of resources, right? Like your pricing model is how much CPU, how much memory, how much disk space. I don't know if network is counted in there, but I know that AI tokens are. at something like you can buy more of each of those things, right? Like these are all
Yep.
knobs I can turn and say, I need more of this thing because whatever my workload is or my constraints are, I just need the constraint to go away so I can pay for more and divvy it up however I want, right?
Yeah, network is in there. We just dropped the price because the original price was AWS's bill plus 5% for my accounting errors, and now, which was enormous, of course. And I've dropped it a bunch, but I haven't dropped it as far as I can because we have some interesting things we want to launch, and we're trying to decide how complicated to make network pricing. Like, it'll. I think it'll make sense when it comes out. But we can do the nice cheap networking that you would expect in a colo. Because, like you said, it's like a 10x bill for just immediately going into a cloud.
So why go that route?
Why a pool? Yeah. So this is entirely motivated by the fact that agents have just changed what programming is to me, because I'm one of these programmers who always has like 10 things they want to do and can do maybe half of one of them, and like not as well as I wish I could, but it's something. And so I've often ended up with like lists in an Apple Note on my phone of like little one-liners of a program I wish I could write, and like I write it down just so that I can then forget about it and never think about it again. And the nature of an agent now is I can take that one line, drop it into an agent, and like a good quarter of the time the program I wanted pops out, or something close to it, especially with a few more minutes of work. And quarter time's not great, but it's a lot better than zero, which is what I had before, and it's getting better all the time. And so agents are creating. This is what I mean by every programmer is going to have so many more programs now, because it's just so easy to like build these small things. And so instead of an Apple Note, what I do now is xedev/new, a little prompt box appears. I type the one-liner in there and hit create VM, and then I forget about it. And I look at it again a few days later, and like sometimes it's useful, or else sometimes I just delete it. And for that flow to make sense, where it just makes me the program and keeps it running every time I create it, the marginal cost of the VM to me has to be zero, because my idea that I just put in Apple Note is worth less than a cup of coffee to me. I'm not going to go and buy a micro VM. It's like, it's like, oh, $3 a month? No, I'm just not going to do it, is the actual answer. And so that, because almost all of my ideas are terrible, as you would expect, right? It's I have a lot of them, and obviously the quality has to be low. I make it up in quantity, though. And it's
the bulk buy. It's the bulk buy.
But when I was reading your blog, that was one of the most relatable parts, when you're like, I always have all these ideas, but like rarely do I get to them all. And I was like, me too. Do you know how many domains I have?
Yes, exactly, right? Like,
so I feel like it was like, and honestly, the only time I've ever used those domains was when I was using Copilot to get those websites up faster, so that way, you know what I mean? Because I don't have time to do all these things, and I feel like you're solving a really interesting problem that we all have and experienced.
I'm glad you feel that way. It's very hard to explain that, like, yes, the innovation in my software is the pricing model has reduced the marginal cost of a VM to zero. It's like one of those technically correct statements that everyone's like scratching their heads around. Why would I want that? But I think I actually want that.
That's not crazy though. I mean, if you look at it, a lot of AWS's success was being able to lower the prices when they were offering things to people because they had excess. Like, you're not wrong.
I think AWS's benefit early days was lowering the time to get to something, right? Because it was like the process of I have an idea is like, okay, we'll go price out, wait for the next procurement cycle, go price out what your budget's going to be for that idea for the next year. Then we're going to rack and stack. And it's like 3 months later, you're like, oh yeah, I don't think I want that idea anymore.
That's part of it. But think about it. When you went in as an SA to most conversations, you were talking about how you were going to like offer more and continue to make it less, or to be more simple. You know what I mean?
That was just lies. That was just marketing lies.
Well.
All of the price will go down. And like,
you said the quiet part out loud.
I will say that with the right architecture, I've saved people a lot of money, but that's also because they were building it wrong.
when we shipped Carpenter, like we saw like people's bills go down by like double digits, and we're like, that's exactly what we wanted. That's great, and we helped you do that. We didn't drive the price of the AWS instance or the network bandwidth down. We drove their consumption down.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense. And like, how would I do this if I wasn't, if I hadn't built xedev and I wanted this? What would I do? I'd go and get a VM VPS like thing somewhere, and I'd set up something like Docker or some other nested VM thing on it, and then I'd set up a reverse proxy that routes to all the things, and I'd
That
set up
sounds
some
horrible.
sort of I would basically build XeDev is the idea, and I was like, well, what if someone built that for you? Oh yeah, all right. So that's what it is, and that's what it is for individuals, and then for businesses, it's that at a larger scale of like, instead of you bring up 3 EC2 VMs and you've got to size them appropriately, you just purchase a pile of CPU and RAM from us, and then you run the VMs you need to run, and we'll call it done. And size your pool appropriately so that all your VMs can run.
That's actually rad because it's the same premise as the cloud of not having to go and rack and stack my own stuff and not having to like think ahead and buy and like, procure all these things, but at the same but have the ability to use like compute power. So that's actually like the best of both worlds, but much cheaper.
I think it could come out cheaper. So, like, in a sense, AWS has 2 kinds of margins on their product. One margin is like they charge you more for the machine than it costs them, which is fine. Like, that's correct. That's business. Good for them. The second is like, I buy machines that are too big for the thing I'm doing, and that's traditionally one of the arguments for the PaaS systems is like, don't go and buy a bunch of vCPUs and leave them lying around on a VM for spikes. But another way to approach that is like, you have a pool of vCPUs that you buy for all of your machines, and you handle it there. There's interesting open questions about like, how regularly do we let you dynamically resize your pool? Like, we charge, I price it per hour for the business case. Like, it seems reasonable that we'd have APIs that let you resize the pool hourly. We have to figure that out. That's it gets more complicated there, but there's a stack of spike demand things I'd love to support somehow down the road.
Do you think you'll ever get to the point where you do like spot pricing when like compute is like really not being used, and then it gets cheaper and then more expensive when it gets really expensive? Or
I would love to do that. I think you need large numbers to make that work. But it's a fundamentally possible thing, in the sense that if you're racking machines in London for a UK audience, then at 2 a.m. in London, those machines are going to be less used. There's going to be extra resources, and so you should be able to spot price them at that time of day. Like, that just makes sense, and it's just complicated. And so it's not, we're a team of 8 right now. I said 9 yesterday. I was wrong. We're 8 because I can't count.
you counted the agent.
Yeah. No. It's not meant to do that. They're not people. And so,
But actually, that brings up another question I had. It was like, you integrated Shelly. You have this agent built into your like VM interface with a proxy available. Can you explain technically how that works and why you decided to go do that?
Yeah, it's very easy to build an agent harness. Honestly, like, it's not super easy, but it's much easier than writing a language compiler. In terms of like, from a software engineering perspective, it's like everyone should do a agent harness 101 course in computer science. And honestly, if you spend a whole semester building an agent harness, it's going to come out about as well as Claude Code. Honestly, there's nothing in there. Like, I don't know why they make, they built a bunch of stuff in there for like sandboxing and stuff. But like, if you skip all that and just let it be root on a VM, it's really
your
easy to
sandbox
write
is outside the harness.
Exactly.
This is easier.
Yeah, that's right. So like, almost all the machine, it exposes a couple of tool calls, and it's a big while loop that calls an LLM. That stuff's easy to write. And it's not just easy to write, it's really fun to customize. Like, I actually think, I suspect those things will end up open source, because engineers are going to want to customize those more than they ever wanted to customize a text editor. And like, we have no end of customization of those. So it's quite easy to build one. So that's nice. That's your first thing is like, what's the cost? Then there's a question of what's the benefit. And like, one of our problems was like, oh, what if someone shows up to XeDev on their phone? Because people do that. Like, I do that. I learn about things on my phone. It'd be cool if they could make a VM and do something useful there. And like, with all these CLI agents, what's your story for like how they would log in and do something? It's like, oh, well, we need a web-based agent. What web-based agent can we use? Like, oh, crickets. There's nothing. Like, for some reason, I don't think so. We built Shelly, which is a web-based agent, and we said we'll include some LLM tokens as part of the base plan, because that's super useful to individuals and let them buy more. I'd love to just plug the subscriptions in, and maybe we can now with the OpenAI one. I need to
That
go
would
research
be really
that.
cool, because I'm just thinking like, I could be like sitting there with my son going to bed and like like just orchestrating a bunch of programs to be written while I'm like doing that. That's rad. And then by the time you're done putting your kid to bed, you can go and like code review and see what like it actually made. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, I use Shelley for actually all the XCDev programming I do these days, precisely because it's easy to use from my phone, and it works just as well as Codex or Claude Code. I always have trouble saying that.
I love a good
So,
efficiency tool like that. I can
yeah,
do my life, but also be like being productive at the same time.
yeah. It's also we're trying to. It's super useful to have there because like, oh, I want to set up a VM, I want to put something on it. I say to myself, it's like, well, I got to apt-get update and apt-get install a bunch of stuff, or you can write a one-line prompt to an agent running on the machine and let it do it.
And
Like,
how do you do that today? Like you mentioned, you have an idea, you know, XE new, and then give it a prompt, and then you just go away. Like my first experience was basically that with interacting with Shelly and saying like, okay, I want to try this thing, but I spent probably 3-4 hours like prompting it again, tweaking things, and it wasn't
yeah.
like a fully autonomous, dangerously
Oh, no,
skip all
no.
permissions.
I mean, if I'm doing an idea just out of the blue, yes, I just type something into XCDev new and let it go. And the first thing I see is like, is there anything potentially useful here? You have to iterate to get any, to actually get it to a good place. But that's the nature of agents today. They can't do it all themselves. Honestly, most of my ideas these days are in our code base. And they're like, how do I want to make a change to how XCDev works. And for those, I've gone through several stages of like what I do. The thing that's most reliable right now is I have a whole set of VMs and I treat them as like reusable Git branches. And like I just drop into one, reset the thing. I have a little reset button, and then type something into Shelley and let it rip and see what happens. Then it brings up all of XCDev inside one of our VMs, and I just play with it and like start creating VMs inside this little embedded universe. But the thing I've been working on is the same thing my colleagues have all built. Each of us is building one of these things, which is an orchestrator. And one of the basic idea is I have one VM and I say I want to do a thing, and then it starts a new VM, gets the Git repo checked out, has like a standard play, and then it takes the results and drops them into some sort of task list like thing. So every time I open the orchestrator, there's like all the ideas I've tried are in this thing. And we've thought about building a generic one of these, and there's several companies out there that have built one of these. But what we've seen so far is like each one of us that's built one has built such a radically different orchestrator, and like it takes like an hour to build one, that we're not ready to like commit to building one of those generically for everyone. So what we're trying to do is build all the machinery, and so things are about to launch that a couple of our customers are using. We're going to make these public in a moment. Is a scoped SSH key for XCDev that every VM gets, so that every VM in XCDev can make new VMs. It gets its own little like sub-account universe where a tag gets applied. And so like it LSs and it can't see all your other VMs. Like its universe starts empty, but then it can make as many as it wants, and they're part of your account. And that lets you write programs that use VMs, and that is like the basis of an orchestrator. And then if you check out our integrations page, this is our version of secrets management. And so one of the things we've realized is almost all of the secrets we have, and like not all of them, but almost all of them, are basically HTTP headers that you send to a service. They're a token that get embedded in a HTTP request. So we set up HTTP proxies outside the VM with the token in them. And so from inside the VM, you can send a request to GitHub, and you can pull private repos and push them and everything. Mm-hmm. But what's actually going on is you did a GitHub OAuth flow outside, and that's what the token lives outside the VM, so the agent can't exfil it or anything like this. And the neat thing is you can set up all those integrations on tags, so that your orchestrator can go and make a new VM. It's immediately got GitHub access to whatever repos it wanted to give it to. It's got access to your ClickHouse logs because it's a ClickHouse integration. Whatever external services you want. And so our whole goal is to build all of the infrastructure to let teams write their own orchestrators, because my guess is for the foreseeable future, engineers have to build that stuff themselves. And if you try buying one off the shelf, you're going to find a really awkward piece of software that almost solves your problem, that you'd have to customize a bunch, and the work of customizing it, it's easier just to open an agent and start building it. If someone gives you all the pieces, So.
This is the idea behind like Gastown, right? Like Gastown, idea is an orchestrator for all these agents,
Yeah.
and so like layering these things in pieces of like how they get contained, or like we got the harness at the very bottom of like the tools calling LLM. We have an orchestrator on top of that that's calling all the harnesses, and you're boxing all that into container or into VMs, a VM sandbox that also can do more VMs, so that each agent is contained inside of that. I guess at that point it's a harness, right? So you have the orchestrator on top of a bunch of VMs.
Yeah, and there's several ways you can arrange this. Someone yesterday told me about Type 2 agents. I was like, what's a Type 2 agent? I thought I knew about this stuff.
Is that like Type 2 fun?
No, because I'm really into Type 2 fun. This was something else. This is,
This tracks, Steven. It tracks on brand.
Isn't programming just Type 2 fun? Like, you sit there yelling at a computer
because,
for
like,
hours?
the whole time you're just like, this is horrible and it's the worst. And then you're like, but I love it when you, like, something good happens. Oh, my God. I just had a revolution. I usually judge people that like Type 2 fun, but you just made me look at myself,
No, it's
David.
you, Autumn. It's you.
Wait, are you gonna make me Google Type 2 fun? I don't know this.
You have to, like, it is, you need to know this, okay? Like, okay,
Out of the loop.
Pause. I need to know, David, whether you're Type 2 fun, because just in the, like, brief hour of knowing you, your Type 2 fun tracks. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, let me go build all the hard things.
You mean my Type 2 fun that's not programming?
Yes.
What else do I do? I mean, exercise is my Type 2 fun. It's awful. I hate it. It's the
You're not
worst. But I do it. Running, all those sorts of things. It's great.
I just feel so called out and attacked right now. Like, I've always been, like, judging the people that do, like, Type 2 fun. And I was like, oh my God, my life is built around Type 2 fun, and this whole time I didn't realize it.
No, you just found a whole new group of people to love. Now you get them. All those people, when you see them like doing an Iron Man or something.
David, we're
like,
gonna
oh,
be
yeah.
friends, but like I just need to like somehow like I need you to find a way to put like your facial expressions and the hilarious like jokes in between, because like they're fire. Like,
That's very kind of you. 2 days ago, someone told me I had a face made for radio.
Jeez.
who said that? They were a hater.
They said it themselves too, and honestly, they're right. I get
Were they
it.
the ones that also watched the podcast? Is this?
No. This is someone who knew what radio is.
See, oh wow, does that mean we're old?
Sorry. Oh, I'll stop now. I'm
Also,
sorry.
I feel like we've lost like that part of storytelling, and I think that's why people are obsessed with TikTok. Like the being able to see people's facial expressions and react to like saying something funny. Like that's like such a missed art, because sometimes you like drop a one-liner and it's hilarious and it's hilarious, but you wish you saw the other person's face, and then like every time you guys say something and it's like too real and you both start laughing before it even gets out of your mouth. You know what I mean? I'm like, I miss seeing people's facial expressions. Like,
I've always struggled with jokes for that reason, because I find them really funny. And so like, just getting them out is hard.
but like me too, but like it makes it so much funnier because you're just like, oh, it's gonna be so good. Like
Yeah.
I can see it.
I agree. It's fun. There's a British TV show I just watched recently called Last One Laughing that I
But
found
why is
on
British comedy so much funnier?
It's because it's different, and comedy is always funny when it's different and new,
Y'all
right?
specialize in sarcasm like nobody's business. Like,
Yeah, and misery, that helps. I mean, if you lived in England, wouldn't you have to be funny too? It's like it's just a.
I live in Seattle. It's cold and rainy here too.
I really like Seattle. It's nice.
I like it too.
It's a nice kind of rain. And you have a harbor. It's really good, the water. But yeah, Last One Laughing is great because it's a bunch of comedians in a room, and they lose and have to leave if they laugh. And so they're just telling jokes to each other and having to deadpan it the whole time. Like, it's so hilarious. And also, sometimes I'm watching, I'm like, am I meant to laugh now? I don't even know. Like, what's happening? Was that a joke deliberately or accidentally?
I swear, like, wait, like, I liked your joke about like laughing through misery. Does not seem like sometimes that's the only way you get through like a shitty time.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
That's,
you're like, if you can't like cry, you gotta laugh about it, because if not, like
100%. Yeah, that's
I think that's why like when you see like a developer meme, it hits so hard because you're like, oh my god, somebody else struggles the way I do.
yeah, it's That's why I laugh so much. It's to
So
avoid
much
the
misery.
tears. Yeah.
We're laughing so we don't cry.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. So, that's but yeah, let's see. What were we talking about? We're talking about computers.
I was gonna ask what's
computers
next,
are good. So
right?
what's next? Yeah. What's next? I mean, that's one direction we're going in. Is like your VMs need VMs. It's like you just need a computer. It turns out your computer needs a computer. Like we just need more and more computers. That's absolutely it. But there's several other things we're working on simultaneously. One is those integrations, that secrets management. Like we have to help as much as we can there because it's hard. And like I said, I don't think there's an easy answer to any of this, but we can build a whole bunch of machinery to make it easy for you. Like if you want every VM you start to just be on your tailnet as part of a Tailscale integration, we should just make that work. And so that's on our list.
I literally
example.
was trying that the other night,
Yeah.
where I was trying to run the Apertures, their new like AI proxy, because like I'm running local models, and I was like, hey, I like Shelly, but I also want to be able to use my local models, and so but I didn't want to go through the whole Tailscale auth flow of doing this thing, and it looks like there's a Tailscale Aperture proxy that they're working on, which will probably help there. So yeah, those were like the things that I was kind of looking at. I'm like, how would I get this XEDev VM to talk to my Aperture so that I can, again, all the auth is stored separately. It's outside the VM, right? That
Yes.
bootstrapping problem is always hard, where I'm like, where do I put all these secrets? And then I have to like copy and paste them every time I'm like starting something new and go through new auth flows. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do it once and then scope it for the thing that I'm working on.
Yeah, well, Tailscale has some good OAuth flows built into it that we can leverage for an integration into XEDev, which lets us, set it up on a tailnet when you create the thing without any extra steps. And lots of other larger, more mature services have that too. So it's actually possible for us to set it up so that if you go through a flow once, that's not easy, but you do it, then you can actually do an AWS integration where each VM you bring up with a tag can automatically reach some S3 buckets you have without any extra work. You do the same with GCP, lots of other services. Slack integration, where's that? There's so much to build. Like our problem is really like we have so much to do. And only so many hours in the day.
That's kind of exciting though, because I feel like a lot of times people that have AI startups, it's like, well, I wouldn't say that you have an AI startup, but let's just like in this realm, in this time, it's always like these really random, obscure, niche problem solutions. And they're like, I'm just like, dude, can you do something to make my life easier with AI? And like yours is making lives easier so you can go build things, but like, it's also so exciting because you have all these problems to solve, and like I feel like right now people are just making up problems to solve, and like that's a legitimate, like you have like a very clear roadmap of all these cool things you can add. Like, is it exciting to be working on something that like you can actually,
It's so much fun. And we have some really great users who like there's a Discord where people hang out and like tell us when we break things and give us ideas and like ask for features. And like the feedback we get from users is part of why we have an endless roadmap. Like they keep coming up with good stuff we have to build. And
That's so rad because a lot of people do not
So-
do feedback, and they don't realize like what a community can offer like their company. So that's rad that you are intentionally building that community and getting that feedback, because like that's just like it adds so much to your process of becoming like this really awesome product that people enjoy using, because developers love to build something that they like because it's cool and they built it and nobody wants to use it and it's absolutely horrible. Like you've almost created a way to have a better software development loop.
I feel like you're exactly right with, especially in the age of idea to execution is cheaper, right? Like just like I have a list of ideas and I can execute on them. I am buying more domains because I'm actually executing some of my
But be
ideas.
real, people made crappy software because they thought they were smarter than everybody for forever. Now you can just do it faster and like do it at a bigger scale.
I think the problem I'm having is that sharing of the thing I built or the thing I created from an idea that I didn't invest time into, the thing that I want you to try, is really weird to me because it's, some people call it slop. Some people are like, if I didn't do the AI prompts, then I don't know how yours works, so I don't want it. And I'm like, that's weird too, because it's like, it's still software at the end of the day. But I think the lack of taste in a lot of it, of just like, oh, well, this model did it, so I'm relying on Claude to have taste in what not to include. And I see these people building these things that are more complicated than they need to be because they didn't put any thought into, like,
But don't
actually, I
these
don't
things
need.
come back to the software development lifecycle? Like, I think a lot of times the people saying that things are AI slop, also because like whether you're coding with an agent or not, you should be thinking about how it's built, having like opinionated like facts about how you want to build this and your architecture and figuring out these different things. And that is what happens before coding ever starts, right? Like the planning and the requirements and thinking about what you want to build and how you're going to break it down. And you can do that with an agent and you can do it with regular coding, but that's the whole doing that first, right? And I think that's a problem that we've always had. It just exasperated.
Yeah, that's right. I was writing slop long before we had AI.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I
So,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah, I can write terrible code all on my own, right? This
Yeah.
is not
This
a.
is just
That's a-
this is just
that's
the
right.
point where you either continue to like, are you iterating on the first thing that you got? Where are you planning it properly? Like, to me, it's like the same, but people just can do it cheaper and faster.
The
at,
weird
like,
thing is, I'm just seeing if two people have the same idea and they could work together and like build a thing, right? But in most cases, they both go off to their own agents and they build it themselves in their own prompting style. And they're like, actually, I just want this flag to be a little bit different. But if someone else slop something and sent it to me, I'm like, no, I'm just going to build that myself. To me, I was equating it to like when you fart. And like at the end of the day, like you're like,
this
you know
is why
what?
my
Like,
kids love you. Okay, like, why are you
you
like
know what?
this?
Like someone else's fart is so terrible that you don't want anything to do with it, right? But like your own, you're like, it's fine. Like it's just like, I did this, it's okay. It's terrible, it's a bad thing, but it's still mine. And at the end of the day, like
And
someone
art, they
else's
call
slop.
that killing your ugly children. Like when you like, because you spend so much time on a piece, right? That you become so like romanticized and in love with it. Like it becomes like your child. So you can't take constructive feedback anymore because all you see is this thing that you
Yeah,
spent
you
so
have a
much
sunk
time
fallacy
on.
of, and
Yeah.
you know the process, you know what, like why you
Exactly.
made some decisions. But at the end of the day, you have like two farts, and
But
they're
I
both
think that's
basically the
like
same thing.
I think that's like the argument of if SAS is dead or not. It can't be dead because people like if it's one thing to have a good idea and then contribute it to like GitHub and then make it an open source project. But if you're like two people are always going to be better at code reviewing and looking at something and figuring out if it's good or not. And just how David said with the whole having a Discord and people giving you feedback, like software is easy. The fun part is writing the code. It's not the not fun part is maintaining it and like how users are going to use it and breaking it and making it reliable and updating it, right? Like, and AI is not going to do all of that.
Yeah, I think there's actually some pretty subtle stuff we can tease apart here that I don't know if I can do it in a short enough time for a podcast, but let me give it a try because I think
Please
What's your
do.
elevator?
there's not all programs are the same, and like there's different kinds of programs, and like what's ideal has shifted. So what's gone on is agents are a force multiplier on our ability to program, and that means is we can create more code, and that means some decisions we made about how we write software have changed some of the time. And so to give you an example, there's always a tension when you're dealing with a web server, for example, between do I write my own web server using a library that does almost all of the work, or do I take an Apache or Nginx style thing and configure it? And 5, the generally accepted norm was, oh, you take the Apache server, I don't even remember if you had Nginx at that point, and you configure it. And like, here's the 800 line config file, and you get it just right.
CGI bin all day.
Yeah, exactly. There's a whole bunch of mods you add to it. But it's one program. We all share it. We've added a billion flags to it to handle the billion use cases. And then the Go standard library came out, and Brad built an HTTP library into it that's just a full web server that you can start in like 5 lines of code. And so you've got this other way of doing a web server configuration, which is, write a binary that's like 50 lines long with a web server just the way you want it using this library. And so there were these two ways to solve problems. And in one of these ways, there's one web server that we all work on, that we all configure, and we build lots of stuff in it to handle all the cases. There's another case where there's 10,000 different web server binaries out there. They're all like slightly tuned. And both of those are kind of workable. But which of those is the correct way to do something has shifted because of agents, because it is now so easy to use the library to build your own custom binary. It's almost certainly the correct option now, Whereas before, you could have a legitimate argument over should we all pile into this one thing. And so I think the question over whether we all pile into one piece of code is how much do our needs overlap and how much configuration do we have to add to it to handle everyone's cases. If we can write a program that meets all of our needs and we don't have to customize it dramatically for each person, then we should totally do that, and we should keep doing that. And I think the Linux kernel is a good example of this. Even though it's very customizable, it's everywhere because it's fundamentally we all need device drivers and we all need a pretty stable Unix API on top of that. And so we shouldn't each write a new Linux kernel replacement in the world of agents. We should keep sharing that stuff. But there's probably a whole set of programs out there that we shared before and had awful configuration on top of that should now be decomposed because of the force multiplier of agents. So there you go. That's my attempt to split hairs there on like what kind of program.
Actually, I think that was a really good summary. And if you think about it, like you said about the Linux kernel, are just different ways that we like use open source. Like I made a joke that Linux is like a religion and a cult at the same time, but it is because people want to do their own little differences. But sometimes it's like when I use my Mac as my daily driver, but my environment is Linux, right? Like sometimes it's depending on like what your risk or just how much work you want it to be, right? So I think that the different levels of what you want that software to do, and is this just for fun? Is this like in production? Like they're all different. So I think that was actually a really, really good summary of that.
I think one of my fears right now in 2026 is even this week. In the last week, we've had multiple critical CVEs against Linux kernel things that have come out and like, here you go, here's a root shell for nothing, and you can do whatever you want. And the complexity of that kernel and what it's been doing at this Apache style shared interface, right? Like it does everything for a lot of people. That there's going to be a lot more of these micro-tuned kernels for specific use cases that are like, actually, I don't need the whole Linux kernel. I'm only doing agents. And so like for me, like at work, like we only run Kubernetes, right? Like our Linux distro only runs Kubernetes. So we just disable a bunch of stuff that we're like, we know we don't need this stuff, right? Like we're never going to have interactive users at this level. And so, but I think that's happening. That's going to be happening more as that decomposes. The problem is it is infinitely harder to track when something is vulnerable, when it's a tweaked your own implementation of like I can go at the Go standard library,
but that's like maintenance, right? That's why everybody like when people get all excited about like writing a bunch of code, and I'm like, cool, until you have to figure that out.
No one wants been in any of this stuff. And like the one thing that I've always like come back to that like enterprises need to centralize on is security for the reporting side of it, just to say like, are we vulnerable? And if you're going at the Go standard library, that's a lot of stuff, and you say like, oh, I need this patch level to avoid this CVE, but also maybe you still implement it a different way. And like those are too coarse. Those like jumps from Go versions when a CVE comes out, or just a hat
comes out with no CVE. Can we just talk about how hard Go is when it comes to like how they do all of their dependencies? Like it just makes me want to puke sometimes.
I have hated Go for a very, very long time.
Their dependencies are ridiculous. But
you should have existed before Go mod. This was, oh my gosh, it was trash. I hated Go. Agents for me today like solve so many of that problem. I'm just like, actually, like I don't care about this anymore. And Go mod
do all the
help.
Things that I absolutely like hate. That's what I use it like agents for. I think
like
that
rebasing.
Yes. No, but honestly, like doing the little like tedious things so I can do the like more bigger thinking. I think that you're onto something though, like because we are going to have to give agents kind of more of room to build and to help us, right? Like I think that just like we were talking about privacy on our last episode and making things more private by default, I almost think that we're going to have to make things more secure by default.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that we're going to have to really cut down on what we're offering, whether it be a Linux distribution or, whatever it is, like it should be almost the least privileges or the least amount, like what you need to actually get the job done. And then kind of using, whether it be like a smaller image and more secure image when you're not really needing to do anything complex with it, or, like, because I think that's where we're getting to. That's why people are using ChangeGuard, or people are wanting those smaller images, because when you're letting an agent loose, or just junior developers, right? Like we've been trying to teach people security for years. It's hard. So now they're letting an agent go, and these agents are breaking out of boxes all the time, so I think we're going to have to start building intentionally like default like security, where we're releasing distros with less And if you need more, add it to more,
Well,
you know?
and even distro is too big of a, like I saw a pull request today for the Linux kernel to dynamically disable functions in the kernel, where you can just like do a kill switch to like this function name don't do it, because like even if the CVE can't be like I have no patch for this, I just need to disable this function call completely in the Linux kernel, right? Like you need to be able to do it dynamically at runtime across the board. And even if your kernel says I have a CVE against this thing, like no, we've disabled those functions, right? Like you need it more fine grained at this sort of like hyper speed of how things are coming out, and we can't release software and we can't patch it fast enough. We never will be able to.
Just looking at the last big CVE that was 0-day, it was patched so differently, like a time frame over all of the distros. And think about how bad that CVE was, and just trying to roll that out, like.
I think short term we're in a lot of pain around the fact that models have made it a lot cheaper to find exploits in software. And I don't know whether Mythos is really significantly better than Opus at this or not. It's very hard for me to see through that fog. But let me use Mythos and maybe I'll answer it. But Opus is really good at it. And so there's clearly a problem right now. And like we see this in all of the bugs we're seeing right now. Long term, it's not necessarily going to be a bad outcome, because if the models stop getting better, if it turned out what there was a step function into like now we can find exploits.
We found all the CVEs for a while.
Well,
That's right.
It's kind of interesting though, because is it a bad thing, or is it just because now we have this ability to find them faster that we wouldn't have found them previously?
Well, they were there. They were already there. Right now we can find them. That's good. And if the models don't keep getting better at finding exploits, or they only get a little bit better, then we're in a great place, because right now at work we have, every time I push a commit to the system, Opus sits there for 20 minutes in a fresh context being asked security questions about it and being like, are there flaws, are there exploits in this? And sometimes it finds them, which is very off-putting. But we're finding those bugs in the software before we're pushing the binary to production. And so if the Linux kernel starts going through that process of every change that comes in is being analyzed by an Opus or a Mythos or whatever it is to find these exploits so that we can catch them before they're deployed, we actually end up in a much better place in terms of software security.
I think that's true. Like it's like finding all the pain up front and then getting through that painful cycle and being able to do better.
There's no question we're in pain right now. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, actually. Yeah, I think there's some pain in our future.
I agree.
So everyone laugh through the pain. That's what we're telling you to do. Just if you're here, you should be laughing through the pain. And if you're listening to this show, go SSH to exe.dev. There's literally no account sign up ahead of time. There's no request. Like you just get a shell, and it's amazing. So thank you, David, for coming on the show and explaining that and building exe.dev.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a ton of fun.
I'm so excited to see all the things that you build. Like just like listening to you talk about it. Like I'm so excited to like kick the like tires and try all the stuff out, because it sounds like it's really going to be like extremely useful, and it's exciting to hear like a really useful startup idea that is going to make it easier for us to build things.
Thank you. I'll try to remember to actually post the features when we release them, because that's our biggest problem right now. One of my colleagues early on Monday, he was telling me, he's like, oh yeah, I take the Discord thing and I paste it into my orchestrator and it produces a PR, and I look at it and I hit submit and the continuous deployment deploys it and I fix it. I was like, do you tell them that you fix it? He's like, oh no.
Now you need to build an agent to go and tell people when it's fixed.
I closed the whole thing.
We need a Discord bot. Yeah, it's on the to-do list. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. This has been great.
Thanks so much.
Isn't that crazy? Like we're gonna change the whole cycle in which all of this, like, you know what I mean? Like it's so rad to see it playing out in real life.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Fork Around and Find Out. If you like this show, please consider sharing it with a friend, a coworker, a family member, or even an enemy. However we get the word out about this show helps it to become sustainable for the long term. If you want to sponsor this show, please go to fafo.fm/sponsor and reach out to us there about what you're interested in sponsoring and how we can help. We hope your systems stay available and your pagers stay quiet. We'll see you again next time.